fuck?
I do love these shows. People will ask you as a radio host, are you nervous when you do that? What's that like? You've been doing it a long time. How's that go? These shows, it's not nervous, but it's like, oh my God, there's a little bit of like your first couple of years come back a little. Like, do I remember how to do this? And then by the end of the first program, you realize it doesn't matter because you've never known how to do it, right? And so, all right, we're mostly fine. Hopefully you guys had at least a little bit of time to take with families and slow down a little bit. I hope you enjoyed your holiday there. Or Santa did what we were looking for, mostly hoping that was able to give the kids everything. We're pretty much there holiday. Did not go back to Vegas this year. Did the staycation. Happy with it. My niece actually kind of bailed me out on this one this year because she didn't really spend a lot of time in Vegas for the holiday either. She was kind of in and out, and then we headed out to D.C. Apparently there were some friends getting together out there. One of her friends has got a pretty impressive, internship out in that area doing something. So she was like, we want to go there. And so they did that. So it's like, then my brother and his wife were like, well, we're going to the Ohio State game. So they left for California a little early. So it was, I held out on that one. It wasn't a lot of guilt this year about how I wasn't coming in from holiday. Was able to get away, just kind of like slow down and relax a little. Job's not... Well, mostly what it is reading the hate machine, the internet every single day. So did take a break from that. I posted a little bit, interacted with some people a little. My brother called me one night there. Apparently there had been something that happened with the president-elect, Trump, and he started to talk to me about it. I said, and he was like, what? I was like, I have no idea what's going on, and I like it that. I said, bro, I'll re-engage next week. I was like, all that. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Don't tell me I don't want to know what's happening. I like living in the unknown right? So I actually did step away a little bit to feel a little rejuvenated. Now, I work in corporate America and you do too. So this machine will fucking on. I'm guessing like a pizza to my doorstep in about 30 minutes, right? I'm guessing in about 30 minutes. Now, I already mentioned it. Telling you my brother went, but I'll say last night. Dominant. I mean, I turned it off and went to bed. Oh my God, dude, Oregon got to 21, huh? I mean, early in that game, they were talking about how they haven't crossed the 50. I mean, just dominant. A lot of underlying stories. Ryan Day, statement game, kind of felt like he was trying to make a statement. Felt like all of Ohio State trying to make a statement losing to Oregon in Eugene earlier in the year. Now, most people said, you played that game again, neutral field anywhere, let alone in the shoot. You played neutral field, Ohio State probably wins 9 out of 10 times. Not only win last night, I mean, just put the foot down on the throat. So now Texas taken to the limit there by Arizona State yesterday. That game, I got to tell you, was a blast to watch in the third, fourth quarter. Completely different from the first quarter. So we'll see what happens, and by what happens is Ohio State will probably roll Texas. They might not face another competitive game the rest of the way into the game, right? Am I crazy in thinking that there's still a world in which Ryan Day wins a national title and still finds himself not the head coach of Ohio State? I'm sorry. Is there a world in which Ryan Day wins the national title and finds himself no longer the coach of the Ohio State? I still think there's a Vrabel thing hanging out there. Elephant in the room. Let alone, let's now look what everybody's saying. They might not even play another competitive game until... Now imagine, somebody sucker punches you. I don't think that's seed. I think it's one of those jobs, man, that unless you're Urban Meyer and it's really like, nah, dude, homie's good at this. I think it's one of those jobs where it's never really yours. But dominant win last night. That Jeremiah Smith kid, man. I posted this on socials yesterday. By the way, I should remind you, back for the first time of the year, the Stansbury Show on this. I said, could it be as simple as the Browns just drafting more Buckeyes? Could it just be as simple as that? Maybe it is. Maybe that should be the new rule. Hey, 2 Buckeyes a draft. We're not hearing anything more about it, right? And no one after round 4, right? You're doing it up early, up front there, right? The Buckeyes got the studs. They got the kids. Let's go, right? Could it be as easy as that? So we got a lot to talk about with the Cleveland Browns, right? Yeah, their final home game, Miami Dolphins, sat in the rain there. My buddy Neil there, Beavers, shout out to him there. Very appreciative. Took me there. He's the season ticket holder there. Sat there in the rain for what we were told was NFL football. We didn't really feel like we saw a lot of it, but we were told that, right? Just, a little bit of a sour end there to a sour season. A lot of hope went into this year, not a lot of delivery. And there will be plenty today on this very program. 8 o'clock, I plan on doing this. The city now plans on putting their foot down with the Cleveland Browns. Has already said so. Like, no, we're going to invoke the Modell law here. We're going to maybe try to force an ownership change. Like, you go build whatever you want. Yeah, you go do whatever you want out there. But what we're going to do is do this and force you to kind of sell the team and leave the brand. We are headed for wild times here. It feels like a little bit of a game of chicken, billions of dollars in between everybody. That's always fun times, right? Follow the money. I got to tell you, this feels like one of those times where I want to let football override every decision-making factor in my brain and go, wait, hold on a second. There's a way to get this out of the hands of Jimmy Haslam here? Whoa, hold on. You mean to tell me I might get football and a scoreboard that doesn't look like the state he likes better than Ohio? Like, are you kidding me? Right? So, like, I got to tell you, if that's the next conversation, I think fans are going to be all about it. I think Jimmy's going to find out just how unpopular he is. I think he might be a little in denial about it. Like, all right, I'm the billionaire. Everybody hates the man, right? Everybody kind of hates that. I think he's got a little bit of that on him, and I don't think he understands. It's moved well past that. Well past that. This is going to be interesting. So we'll talk about that a little bit, that at 8 o'clock. Oh, by the way, you hear some young ladies on a podcast. Apparently her father had worked for the Buffalo Bills for a long time. And she started to dish the dirt on some of the stories he used to tell around the dinner table. None of them great. We'll get to some of those 9 o'clock. Football fans can be dirty and filthy out there when they're all hammered, liquored up. By football fans, I mean me. Right, so we'll tell you some of the things I've done in stadiums and I'm not so proud of while we run you through her stories. Now, sadly, the Sugar Bowl had been postponed until today. That because of a terrorist attack that happened in its host city. We'll take a look at that event at 7 o'clock. You combine that with, and some people are already, another event, if we will, involving a Cybertruck in Las Vegas with an explosion that, again, had been, I think, misrepresented as the truck exploding, as if there was something wrong with the Cybertruck. There wasn't. And instead now it is being investigated as a terrorist event. People are looking at these things like they could be related. From what I understand, both vehicles rented through the same organization. That a little flimsy information coming from social media. I'm a little less likely to rely on that until I get confirmation on it that I have seen. I'm hearing a little bit about that, but we'll get into that situation. The Sugar Bowl, the postponement of it there. There's a world and a way in which to look at this as postponing the event to today versus like an actual pause makes you look almost worse as an organization, maybe even as a country, networks rather. There will be plenty of people who will have some interesting views on that. We'll get into that conversation today around 7 o'clock as well. Also, some pretty wild things happened here locally in Stark County, including Al Fulton while I was away. You guys want to talk a little Molotov cocktails blowing up in people's pickups? Sure. Yeah, all right, let's do it here next time. Rock 106.9. The Stansberry Show.
I touch their hearts and souls with humor, with love, and maybe a on
Rock 106.9. 330-450-7625 to text your studio. You can find me on your socials too, The Stansberry Show. Deborah, I believe that was one of the old school. Dawn, sorry. With my email, that's fine too. StansberryWRQK.com. I love you, man. Already everything you spoke of today. Well, until the football. Yeah, sorry about that. But with Ohio State just last night, the Browns fighting with the city, there's going to be some football conversations on the program today. And the NFL, I believe, pulled like 24 million viewers with those holiday games. Yeah, just Devo, right? The NBA had it. And then now, dude, the NFL just shows up, and they got the NBA just tucking their chains in and stuff on Christmas Day. It's terrible, dude. Big bank take little bank, man. I remember when everybody tried to tell me the NFL was the league that was in trouble. So I apologize, Don. We are going to have to talk a little Ohio State. We are going to have to Ross today throughout the program. I was also talking about how I didn't really do much during my break, and apparently a lot of you decided to go that route too. I was talking about how, man, I was like leaving my house sometimes and just not even taking my phone. And I thought, well, like the one day I was going to the grocery store, what the hell do I even have the phone for, right? I was like, well, what if you get into an accident? At first I was like, what bitch am I? Am I a failure? I haven't even walked out the house yet. Why am I getting in a car accident? A. B, it's like, well, bro, you got the May collision connection, right? Like those guys, they make friends by accident. They'll help you out if you get into an accident, right? And the other person I get into a car accident with, they'll have a phone. I got my insurance card in the car. What the hell do I need this thing for? I'm going 10 minutes down the street. I'm walking through the grocery store. I'm walking out. I'm coming back home. Why do I need my digital babysitter with me? Right? Well, what if you're in line? It takes time. You know what I mean? Some of that. It's like, I shouldn't be doing that anyway, right? So apparently, a lot more of you decided to set the phones down. You know, it's such a weird, we have this conversation all the time, and it's because it's a very relatable thing. We're all a little more reliant on them than we should be. They're very convenient. And so, like, that's how the reality starts. I was like, well, help me do everything now, right? I mean, just this morning, I can't even tell you everything. Right? Avoided conversations I didn't want to have. Initiated other conversations I needed to have. Checked some online banking stuff. Took a couple of photos for some social media stuff we're going to be doing later. Maybe tomorrow and some other things, right? I mean, that's a lot of activities for a thing before, not even, I mean, it's just now hitting like 6:30. That's a lot of activities. So, I mean, they're very convenient, and we're becoming more and more reliant on them. And so, like, we're with them all day, and they feel like babysitters, or a leash I have called it. And so it's a little refreshing to find out that more and more people are talking about how, like, man, I just decided this time around, like, nah, I'm just gonna less, not none, less, the little restriction. I kind of like that. Because I'll tell you one of the reasons. You know what a word I didn't hear very much at all this last year, leading up to this? Resolution. New Year's resolutions. This is another thing. April Fool's Day was kind of killed off by the internet because of like how much pranking and parody goes on every day. That now it's like, hey, we're going to be special about it on this day. It's like, have you not seen the internet, bro? It's literally just, you know, we all turned into angry men. Like, that's what the internet is. So we no longer need April Fool's Day. We have April Fool's Year now, right? It killed that tradition off. I kind of feel like the namaste of like the TikTokization of the country, right? And like the I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, like of that like thing that's taken over the internet is also kind of killed off the New Year's resolution. Well, like, I'm on my journey every day, so, like, I don't need to wait until I do that, like, you know, because I'm on this journey every single day. Journey, by the way, is the word they swapped up for grift, right? So don't forget to hit like and subscribe over here, right? So, like, that whole thing has kind of killed that off, the whole resolution. And part of that is, you know, because of the internet, and that, again, gets us back to the cell phone a little bit. So it's nice to read that. Because I think a lot of people feel as if, man, if I miss that email, if I miss that text, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to get replaced. And here's the thing. I had a little too much time to sit around and think during the holiday. I don't even think it's true. I just think that they enjoy the fact that we... Because they still get the result of it in the end. I started thinking people are celebrating the fact that they're not on their cell phones while you're at home with your kids over Christmas. It's like that would have never even, like that would have, like to tell my father, no, over the holiday, dude, you're going to be attached to the corded phone on the wall. Like, he would have looked at you like you were like an alien. You know what I mean? Like, that's a bizarre thing when you are there with the most important people in your life. The moment, the Rockwell moment, right? That it's like, oh, like that you feel like you're getting away with something. As much things that need to be reformed about work and money and compensation and this and that for most people in society. That, I think, is an examination that really needs to go down. And I think employers, I always talk about this. I'll never understand why they don't try to cut things off at the pass. What they want more than anything is to hold on to their money. They'll give us all this stuff back. If you gave people the illusion of a little bit more freedom back in their lives, gave them a little bit more convenience back in their lives, and felt like you were spying on their lives a little less, I think they push the money button way less often than they do. They damn near don't do it now. You know what I mean? It's like there's no loud resistance going on in most corporate buildings in America today. That's not happening, right? And so, like, I just don't understand. It's like when I saw how many people were just happy that they didn't have to respond to their email. I was like, God, man, like that's like that shit. That feels great. I mean, I think about people like my boss. There's no vacation for that guy. He went on a vacation. There's no such thing. Like I start thinking, it was like it's hard enough even for where I am in this organization, which is 2 rungs above like street mine, right? It's still hard for me to take a vacation because of the reliance that the station has on me as the person anchor, right? Like it's hard to step away for that long. There's going to be things you have to do. And when you realize, dude, that he's only about 12,000 stairway of heaven rungs above me there's zero chance that guy can walk away from this email further. That's unfortunate. I tell him all the time, I was like, I don't think I would swap that. I don't think I would do that. I can actually step away from this a little bit more than you can, right? And it's kind of one of those things I always talk about, perspective, right? It's like sometimes I can get a little caught in my like, geez, it's tough, it's hard being me. But then I look around, it's like, I could have gotten into this industry and was like, you know what? Middle management. That's what I want. I want to manage. I could have done that. When I look around at the morons, not mine, there are plenty of morons in middle management in this business, dude, plenty. They're all over, they're literally riddled with it. You know what I mean? I got lucky enough and got one of the good ones, but there's plenty of them that are not very good, right? And so, like, I could have done that. I could have been one of those idiots. But the life that you give up, I'm not sure I would have traded that. So it's nice to see a lot of people saying, nah, man, like you, like things have just gotten, this might have been one of the, I hate to frame it this way. This may have been one of the silver lining things that kind of came out of, my friend always talks about the change in the psyche of people since COVID. She's convinced that the psyche of a lot of, not everybody, but of a lot of people, enough people that that the change is noticeable for all of us. That's what she believes. And I think a little bit of like, nah, man, I'm stepping away, dude. Like I was seen that I'm not essential. I was shown, or I was told I was, and proven that I wasn't. I think there's been a little bit of an awakening where people were like, nah, man, I'm stepping away a little bit. And if that's what it had, I mean, let's not go down that road. But I do like the fact that people are starting to reclaim some of that for themselves. You know, we have always talked about it this way with the Alexas, back in the day, it's like people, one of their biggest fears is that somebody would be spying on them, and now you pay $199 to have a spy literally on your coffee table in your home, right? And there is that thing. I like a little bit of the disconnect. I like a little bit of the pullback. It was beneficial for me, and I'm sure it was beneficial for you. I did not do very much on my break. Some of you had a much more eventful holiday, including this pretty wild story out of Canal Fulton. You know what? Let's get into this next here on Rock 106. The Stan Sperry Show.
A first class, bona fide, made in America screw-up.
On Rock 106.9. Welcome back to the program. Text in that at 330-450-7625. The microphone talkback button out there on iHeartRadio if you happen to listen that way. A little later, we'll get into the Browns versus the City around 8 o'clock. We'll take a look at that. I think the best possible scenario for the fans could come out of that. I might be using too much optimism. We'll get there. I've been away from the studio for a while, so I missed some things. Even pre-holiday, I missed some things. And a buddy of mine, during the break, we were hanging out. He said to me, "Hey, man, did you hear about this wild story out of Fulton?" I said, "Nah, man, I got to be honest with you." I said, "I've been pretty phone down, shut off, kind of telling the family, like, hey, here's the window, I'll have it back on, checking messages and the like, but mostly just kind of done, you know what I mean?" It was like, it was a big part of what I was doing. He said, "You might want to read about this." All right, send it over to me. Let's see what you got. And apparently a 28-year-old had been arrested. Arson charges. He's been accused of throwing a Molotov cocktail at a vehicle and fleeing the scene. So you hear Molotov cocktails, like, geez. I mean, I hate to be this guy, but when you hear like crazy story in America, you almost automatically assume it's like, well, gun was related, right? When you hear weapon used any form, what's the first thing you're going to think in America? Firearm. For sure it is. We're going to talk about that a little differently next hour too. So I just wouldn't have ever thought Molotov cocktail, I mean, I guess if we're taking B on Hacienda and Black Ops 6, okay, maybe, right? But like I wasn't thinking it in our neighborhoods. But apparently the police said on their Facebook page that they had been called Erie Avenue. A very observant neighbor was able to provide an excellent description of the vehicle and the suspect. This, they say, led to officers quickly locating the suspect in Clinton. He had then been taken into custody. The Canal Fulton Fire Department, the Police Department, Regional Emergency Dispatch Center, Jackson Township Fire Department, and New Franklin Police Department assisted. At the point of this article, the man had still been remained in Stark County Jail on Saturday. It's like, geez, man, you just don't think of that happening. Now, sure enough, it ends up being a neighbor. We hear now that this has been a former neighborly dispute, right? And when asked about the crime, the guy said, well, is there video of me doing it? And he's like, yeah, there's multiple. And there's a neighbor who saw you and could describe you to a T and your vehicle perfectly. It's like, this didn't even feel like somebody who was trying to get away with it. That's why it's like, this is one of those things where it's kind of shifted now. Because you used to kind of poke fun at the craziness of this, but now it's like, this kind of feels like mental illness on full display. And it's like, how much, poking fun of that are you? Especially local. And thank God nobody got hurt. They called the neighbor a very observant, neighbor. It's like, geez, dude, they could have been described completely differently if this story goes off the rails. Which, by the way, apparently we got to be on the lookout for this. Because in Virginia now, apparently the FBI has seized the largest cache of homemade explosives in the history. 150 explosive devices. They say mostly you would characterize most of these as pipe bombs were found in a home and a garage on a 20-acre farm. This is in Isle of Wight last month. Prosecutors say the discovery was made while the investigators were serving a search warrant for an unregistered short-barrel rifle believed to be in the possession of the suspect identified as Brad Spafford. He then was arrested back in mid-December. That's kind of terrifying too, right? 150 explosive devices? I mean, it's like, look, man, I believe in my right and your right to have a firearm in the house, protect you and yours, like all that. There's a conversation. But like I've always said about control, right? That word. I was like, I believe we all believe in some form of it, right? Like, you would be uncomfortable if your neighbor had a tank pointed at your house. Like, dude, the 45 in the drawer, I get. This, I'm not so sure if I'm in love with, right? So it's not necessarily control we're against, it's degrees of it there, and that's where the argument is. I'm a little uncomfortable, I gotta admit it, with my neighbor having, honestly, I don't, you could be a little bit of a history buff, a war buff, and kind of have stuff right, kind of hang out. Homemade explosives is concerning to me. That is very, very concerning to me. It's also worrisome. That was, what's crazy is that was one of the early worries of the internet. It's like, oh my God, the wackos are teaching each other how to make crack cocaine and bombs. And I hate we didn't even think it was going to turn our daughters into porn stars with only nobody even saw that one coming. It was like, geez,